Hi everyone, welcome to the Coding Channel. Today is the third episode of our Java tutorial series for beginners. And in this episode, we are going to talk about variables, data types, and Eclipse IDE. These and more after a short while. In our previous episode, we've used the Notepad++ as our editor and a command prompt to compile and run our Java program. Now, in this episode, we are going to start using the Eclipse IDE. Now, if you're new to this IDE, all you have to do before you can start creating your Java program, you just go to a file menu and then select new and then Java project. Okay, that's the first thing that you need to do. And then, for instance, if you want to have a Java project, just like what I did here, Java tutorial, you just have to type the project name there. Let's say Java tutorial. Okay. And then you just have to click the finish button here. Since I already have created a Java tutorial, that's why it's already disabled in my case here. Okay, so that's the first step. And then the second step, after you have created the project, okay, you will see this folder, and then inside of the Java tutorial project, there is a JRE system library generated, as well as the SRC folder or the source folder. So inside of this JRE, these are the needed tools for us to compile and run the Java program, and the other tools needed. Okay, and the next step is to go to a file menu again, and then click new, and then this time choose the class. And then within the new Java class dialog box, you just have to make sure that you have selected the source folder. In this case, we have the Java tutorial. Okay, you just have to click the browse, for example. And then you can also type in the new package, or if you have an existing package, you can just browse it. So in my case, I have the EP1 here. So that's why, as you can see, there is a package EP1 in line number 1. Okay, and also you need to type in the class name that you want. So for example, in my case, I have a sample1 there, so you just have to type sample1. Okay, and then if you want to have a computer generated method main heading, like for instance, we have a public static void main here, that if you don't want to type it, so all you need to do is just to check this one, the checkbox here. Okay, and then click the finish button. So that's it, and then you will have this um, example in my editor window. Now, actually, there are a lot of windows available, so I modified that in my case here, in my example. The most important for me at this point is the Package Explorer window. Now, in the event that you don't have this window, or you accidentally click the close button, you can just make it visible again by clicking the window menu and then show a view. So in here, you can see the Package Explorer. You can just click this one. Okay, and then also in our editor, if you want to zoom in or zoom out, for example, you just have to use the control plus there, or control minus, for example. Okay, and then at the same time, if you want to also change the theme, so you just have to go to window menu again, and then the preferences, and then make sure that you are in the general tab. So you just have to select the appearance, and then as you can see, there is a theme here. By default, it's a there's a classic, and then light and system, and in my case, I just choose a dark here. So that's why I have this type of theme. Okay, and one thing is the console window, where we see the output. Okay, so I have drag my console over here, so that you can actually just minimize that one, so that every time you run, and then if you want to see the output, so you can see the output over here in this window. Okay, so that's it. And then for instance, if you want to maximize the working area of your editor window, you can actually minimize this one just like this one. Okay, and then make it visible again, or if you want to restore something like that. Okay, this is simple. Or again, if you want to create a class, you just have to right click anywhere in this area in the package explorer, and then there's a shortcut, a menu here, and then you just select the new, and then either you create a new project or you create a new class. Okay, instead of clicking the file menu over here. Okay, so that's how simple it is. Okay, now so let's get started. Once you have created your own class and then in the project, so you will see this type of code. Okay, and then I decided to discuss the variables and the data types in this episode as a lecture type. Okay, so that you will have a better understanding about the variables and the data types in Java. Okay, so when we say variables, if you're a first timer, if you are new to programming, okay, variable is a container for storing a data value, or it's the name of the memory location. Okay, and then when we say variable, actually it's a combination of vary plus able, which means its a value can be changed, and it is assigned with a data type. So if you're going to learn the variable, you need also to learn what is a data type. Okay, but before that, there is a five general rules that I've listed here for constructing names for variables. Okay, so first, the names can contain letters, digits, underscore, and a dollar sign. Names must begin with a letter, and name should start with a lowercase letter, and it cannot contain white spaces. Okay, and names are case sensitive. Then reserved word or Java keyword cannot be used as name. So let me show you an example. Okay, so I have here the data types available in Java, built-in data types. Okay, and then I have also here the variable. So this is an example of a variable. Okay, for example, we have is fan number one, number two, number three, and these are the rules in naming a valid variables. Okay, so again, if you want to name your variable, so uh, it, it contains letters, or you can have a digit just like this one, number one, and then you can use an underscore, for example, because this one cannot contain a white space. So meaning if you want to, for example, to separate the number and then one, okay, you cannot do this in a variable name, just something like that. It's an error, okay? You cannot have a white space there. So if you want to separate, again, you can use the underscore, okay? And then you cannot have a variable in a Java unless you declare it with a data type. Okay, so we have actually um, um, different data types. But before that, let me explain to you the three types of variables in Java. Okay, the first one is a local variable. Okay, so what is this local variable mean? So it's a variable declared inside the body of the method. And you can use this variable only within that method, and the other methods in the class are not even aware that the variable exists. So let me show you. We are inside of the main method. Okay, so any variable that you declare inside of this method, okay, is actually a local variable. So since we declare the variables inside of the main method, so these are an example of a local variable. Okay, and then actually that is the focus of our episode for today. Okay, what about instance variable? So instance variable is a variable declared inside of the class but outside the body of the method, and it is not declared as a static. Okay, like for example, okay, I have a variable declaration here. Okay, if I put that outside of the method main, okay, so this is now an example of an instance variable. Okay. Or in other programming language, they call it global variables. Okay, so that the other methods of the class, like for instance, for now we only have one method. Okay, but there comes a time in our succeeding episode that we will have another user-defined method. Okay, we're going to create that method, and then if we have an instance variable, so those methods can also use or access this variable, since this one is an instance variable. Okay, but again, if you're having difficulty in understanding about what's an instance variable is all about, okay, we will have a, don't worry, we will have a separate episode regarding the instance variables when we are going to discuss the object-oriented programming in Java. Okay, so I reserve that episode. Okay, for at least for now, you know that once you put the variable outside of the method, okay, we call that as an instance variable. Okay, now if you put a static keyword, okay, in our instance variable, we call that as a static variable. Okay, so because a static variable is a variable that is declared as static and it cannot be local, meaning you cannot have a static int, for example, count within the main method. Because if you're going to declare a static variable, this one should be located outside of the method, but inside of the class. Okay, so let's say, for example, we have a static int account. So that is an example of a static variable. And again, I will reserve another episode for specifically only for a static variable. Okay, so our main focus in this episode again is only the local variable. At least now you know that there are three types of a variable in Java. Okay, the local variable, the instance variable, and then the static variable. Okay, so let's continue. So let's talk about data type. When we talk about data types, okay, it's specify the different sizes and values that cannot be stored in the variable. So there are two types of data types in Java. Okay, the first one is the primitive data types. Okay, and the other one is the non-primitive data type. So when we say primitive, it's a predefined or already defined in Java. Okay, and actually there are 8 primitive data types in Java, and these are byte, short, int, long, float, double, char or char, and then we have a boolean. Okay, now let's try to talk about a primitive data type first. Okay, so basically it includes a boolean and numeric. Okay, and then so the boolean can have either true or false. Okay, and then the numeric include a character and integral. Okay, it's like a subset. Okay, that numeric is divided into two. There's a character and then the integral part. And then when we say integral, it includes integer and then the floating point. When we say integer, it includes, these are now the byte, the short, the int, and long data types. Okay, and then when we say floating point, or these are values with decimal points, so we can use actually float and double. Okay, when we talk about non-primitive, again, these are created by the programmer just like us. It is not defined by Java except for a string. Okay, it includes classes, interfaces, arrays. Again, don't worry, the interfaces, okay, arrays, we will talk this, we will have a separate episode in our, actually we have a lot of episodes regarding arrays, okay, interfaces, okay, in this channel. Okay, but for now, what I want you to know is that we have a primitive, okay, and the non-primitive data types. And actually, it's a trivia. Um, when you're going to ask me, is Java an object-oriented programming language? The answer, my answer is actually no, not 100% object-oriented programming. Why? Because Java uses the primitive data types. Because of this, okay, that's the main reason why Java is not 100% object-oriented programming. Okay, because of the primitive data types. Now let's talk about these primitive data types. Okay, the first of four, we have byte, short, int, long. These are used if you want to have a variable, okay, that will store a whole number, meaning these are numbers without decimal points, okay, either negative or positive. Okay, so like for instance, and these are the ranges. Okay, for example, the byte, the maximum value that you can store in a byte variable is up to 127. So for example, if you want to store 128, so you cannot use a byte anymore. Okay, but you can use the short data type instead, because the short has a you can store a maximum value of 32,767. The minimum is negative 32,768. Okay, so same with the int. This one can store up to 2,147,483,647 value. Okay, and the long, okay, as you can see, these are now the maximum value that a long data type or variable can hold. Is if you're working on, a large numbers, a large bank account, for example, so you can use long. Okay, and then for float and a double, so these two are the available data types in Java. Okay, that is a part of the primitive data types in Java that we can use. So if having let's say for example 6 to 7 decimal digits, so you use float. But if you're having more than 7 decimal digits, so you can use double. And then if you're working with character, we can use a char or car data type, because it stores a single character or letter or ASCII values, because a car can also be assigned an integer value, because there is an ASCII code equivalent. Okay, so later I will show you. And then for Boolean, it stores true or false values. Okay, so let me show you an example. If you're going to declare, okay, so I have shown you the declaration now, okay, the variable. So you can just do it like this. Okay, you just declare, meaning when the interpreter of Java reads this variable declaration, okay, somewhere in memory, there is already a reserved space for is fun, for example, that can store either true or false. Number one that can store up to a 127 maximum value, and then the short, okay, the int, long, car, float, double, and then the string is an example of a non-primitive data type. Okay, and as you can see, the string is a class. Okay, unlike this 8 primitive data types, these are all in lowercase. Okay, so that's the one of the main difference. So if you're working with a string, okay, so you can use the string class. Okay, now let's have another example here. So you've learned how to declare variables. So this time, if you're going to declare and at the same time assign a value to it, so you can actually use this type of format. For example, you want to have is Java fun variable, okay, and then you want to have an initial value of false, so you can do like this: boolean is Java fun equals a false, without any double quote there. Okay, so either true or false. Okay, and then for example, you want to declare age. So this one, this variable, let's say for example age. So normally it's if I don't know if there's uh, a person, alive at the age of 127 nowadays. Okay, but if for example, if your variable talks about age, so byte is an applicable data type for that. Okay, and then for example, if you have if you want to store a salary of an employee, so normally, for example, if the salary is at 32,767, that is the maximum, so you can use short. But if the salary is more than this amount, okay, you can use now the int data type. Let's say, for example, you want to store this amount to a checking account, so you can use an integer for that, or int. Okay, and then if the saving accounts is more than trillions, okay, of trillion amount, for example, or more than that. Okay, try to imagine how many digits is this. Okay, so you can actually use the long, but take note, if you're using this one at the end of the value, you just have to put the L there. Okay, so that Java can recognize that this one is a long the savings account, for example, is a long data type. Okay, and then if you want to have a character, if you want to store a single character to a variable, let's say you have f grade variable here, you can use this one. Okay, you can declare it using car with a single code. So that's the only difference. Then aside from that, for example, we have car letter, but take note, I have a specify here 65, which is an integer. Okay, is this possible? Yes, because we will determine later. For example, let me just uh, comment this one. Okay, for us to focus on only on this letter. Okay, so let's say, for example, we have an output statement here. So you can now put the variable inside of the parameter or argument of a print method, and you just have to put a letter there. Okay, so we will check now if we can actually display the letter, okay, with an ASCII code of 65. Okay, so let's try to run our sample. Okay, so now the 65 value of letter, the 65 is an ASCII code equivalent of capital letter A. So that's the output. Okay, now inside of the print, aside from the variable, okay, for example, you can add a string here. Okay, for example, the letter is, okay, for instance, plus. Okay, now the plus sign here is a concatenation operator. Okay, because the plus sign has a two meaning in Java. The first one, we use the plus sign or operator uh, for addition. Okay, adding two numbers, and at the same time for string concatenation. Okay, so in this case, we've used the function of the plus sign here, or the yeah, the plus sign is string concatenation. Okay, just to concatenate the two, the string and then the character. Okay, so that's how we use that one. Okay, then another thing, let's go back to for example, the savings account. Okay, you want to display that one, so you can just specify savings account here. Okay, so that's it. Or you can also just put any string here, either over here. Okay, you can use a plus and then another string, for example, the savings account of let's say of Mr. Lee. Okay, for example, something like that. If you run this one, you can see now the output. Okay, so that is still a valid. Okay, the string concatenation. So this is a long value plus the string. Okay, don't forget to include the plus sign, because if you forgot that one, that is a syntax error. Okay, if you force, so you'll have actually you cannot proceed. Okay, so that's it. Let's continue. Another, aside from that, we also have either float, okay, or a double for the floating point, or having decimal points. Okay, now if you're going to use a float, okay, or when are you going to use a float? If you want to display or if you want to assign a value to a variable having a maximum of 1 2 3 4 5 7 6 to 7 digits, right? So float is applicable for that. But take note, at the end of the value, you have to specify put a f there. Okay, for the Java to know that this value is a float the data type, okay, or value. Next, double. double, for example, tax rate. Okay, if you have, let's say, 15 digits there, so the double data type is much more applicable to that. Okay, and also you can use a scientific number to indicate the power of 10. For example, 12e4 and then d means double, for example. Okay, but this one is not required if you are just specifying, for example, like this one, you don't have a d there. Okay, and then the last one is the non-primitive type, which is string. For example, you have a username and then you want to store a manager to a username. Okay, so you just have to put double quotes there. Okay, because that is a string. So there's a difference of string and then the car or a char. So that's it. I hope that you understood what I'm uh, discussing. Okay, and then another thing is we have what if you want to declare more than one variable of the same type? Okay, so we will just have to use the comma separated list. For instance, we have int a, b, and c. Okay, so that is possible. Instead of having int a, int b, int c, so you can use this type of format. Or if you have an integer variable declared with a initial value, so you can do it with this using comma separated list. So for example, int n1 equals 5, comma, n2 equals 6. Instead of having int n1 equals 5, semicolon, int n2 equals 6. So this one is also correct. Okay, so what else? So far, so good. Or let me go back to this one. For example, if you have declared is fun, and then somewhere here down below, for example, you have now um, a initial value, so you can do this one. Okay, so you have a two statements. The first one is only the variable declaration, and then the second one is the assignment statement. So this one is still valid. Okay, or in our example, we have the declaration and assignment statement at the same time. Okay, now let me discuss with you the main difference between primitive and non-primitive data type. So when we say non-primitive types can be used to call methods to perform certain operations. So we will have a lot of actually examples about this one when we talk about methods in our succeeding episodes. Okay, all you need to do, to know is that at least you know now that with the non-primitive types you can use to call a method. Okay, and while primitive types cannot. Okay, another difference: a primitive type has always a value. Yes, for example, this one. Okay, n1 is equal to 5, and then what's the use of declaring a variables if you don't plan to put some values to it? Okay, right? While non-primitive type can be null. Okay, so we will discuss this the non-primitive types soon. Okay, next, a primitive type starts with a lowercase letter. Yeah, like for instance, int, double, float. Okay, while the non-primitive type starts with an uppercase letter because basically these are classes. And if we are creating a class, it should start with a capital letter. It is the by naming convention. The size of a primitive type depends on the data type. Yes, while non-primitive types have all the same size. Yeah, that's correct. Because for example, um, if you declare a byte and then short, okay, the difference is the value. Okay, this one, the maximum is 127, for example, for byte, and this one is 32,767 for short. Okay, but if you are using a non-primitive data type, so the values are equal because these are all classes. And actually, the main reason, for example, we are creating a class here. Okay, this sample one. When we finished or creating this class, so this is now can be a data type, can be a non-primitive data type. Okay, so that's another topic to be discussed. Okay, at least for now, you know that the classes that we are creating can be a data type, okay, soon in our succeeding example. Okay, so what else? Next is the final variables. Okay, in other programming language, they call it as a constant variable. But in here, we call it final variables, or these are variables having a final keyword. Okay, like for instance, this one. So take note that final variables is a variable which means unchangeable and read-only. You can add a final keyword if you don't want others or yourself to overwrite existing values. So let's say, for example, we have declared an int mynum with an initial value of 15, and you put the final there. Okay, and then the next statement, we have an assignment statement again, mynum equals 20. So this one will generate an error. You cannot assign a value to a final variable. Okay, we cannot change it anymore. Normally, we use this one if we have, let's say, for example, that is already fixed. Okay, from the very start, you declare that variable a final because you know that's the only value of that variable. So we call it a final variable. Okay, so all you need to do to know is whenever you declare a variable final, okay, you cannot change the value anymore. Okay, unlike if this one is not a final, let's say for example you only have just int now mynum equals 15. So this one is a valid syntax, because the moment you change or assign a new value to mynum, so if we are going now to display the output, for example, system.out.print num or mynum. Okay, after this statement, what do you think is the output? Is it 15 or 20? Let's try to run. Okay, so we have now 20. Okay, and the same thing. Okay, for example, if you want to add string, so the answer is, okay, then plus mynum. So that's the string concatenation. If you want to run again, it's an integer. Okay, that's it. Or let's say, for example, let me try here. Int 2. Okay, so let's try to add this one. How are we going to add? Okay, so the for example, the sum is, so you can just do it like this. The sum is plus, and then how are we going to add this one? Mynum plus mynum 2. Okay, so that's it. Or you can actually put that inside of the parentheses to force that you need to add this two expression first, the mynum plus mynum2, before you add. Now, what's the difference of the two plus operator here? Okay, this one in here, it serves as the string concatenation operator, but in here, the plus here serves as an addition operator. Okay, that's it. What else? So these are the things that you need to know about variables and then data types. If you have questions regarding this episode, don't hesitate to drop a comments in our comment section, because I'm more than willing to help you guys. I'm more than willing to answer all your questions. Okay, so because my goal, I'm happy if you learn something from this channel, because it's my passion to actually to teach you about Java. Okay, so these are the source code for this episode. And that's all for today. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And as always, show your love through comments and favorites. God bless and thank you for watching.